And let's go. Welcome to the Love What You Do podcast. My name is Sean Dolan. And with me today, I have the lovely, the intelligent Kristine Schachinger. Did I get your name right?
Close, yeah.
Oh, what is it? Tell me.
It's
How do I pronounce it?
Schachinger. It's
Schachinger.
Schachinger.
So close.
Yeah.
Kristine Schachinger. And Kristine is a technical SEO, and she's been doing this a very, very long time. And I guess today I wanted to start out by how did we meet?
Well, there's two stories there.
Yeah.
So when we were at the conference last week, State of Search, we had talked the night before for a little bit, and
Yeah.
someone said, "Oh, you're talking to Sean Dolan." I go, "That was Sean Dolan?" like, like I didn't know because the last picture I had seen of you, you looked a little bit different. So,
Yeah.
so when I talked to you later, I reminded you that we both worked on Hurricane Harvey rescue. You did the really hard work by rescuing people in the field, and I found people online that needed help, and I just started reaching out to try to find people. There was a Twitter hashtag said needs help, and no one was answering. So I
Yeah.
started answering people, and that just became, as you know, this whole thing of crowdsourcing and everyone just kind of
Oh,
coming
yeah.
together. And before, and I think I know you worked with the Cajun Navy, but I also think um, I don't know if you were there before. We were there before the Cajun Navy, so we started looking for people before that. So
Yeah, I think it was like
yeah,
Texas Navy. There were a bunch of little
yeah, so
different
many
groups,
different
and
groups.
and
Yeah,
really we mixed all together in the end. But
yeah,
no, it was so important having like you guys were like the eye in the sky. You were like dispatch. So like we're
yeah,
down there and stuff's happening. I remember like there was one time there was a gas leak because like this area has never been flooded like this before. So all these things start happening like air conditioning units that are still plugged in and all these like hazards, electrical hazards. And so y'all were like watching the news and like keeping us like I'm going in a boat and y'all knew where I was and then they'd be like, there's a gas leak ahead of you. Take a right." I was like, "Thank you." I mean, it was so important that
it
y'all were
was
like
crazy.
guiding
Yeah,
through this madness, and it was so
I,
impressive to me that the citizens kind of rose up and
yeah.
just created this network. So it took everyone. It was
That was
amazing. So
crazy. I had at least 10 hashtags going that I was watching all at the same time
yeah,
in TweetDeck, trying to look for stuff for
yeah.
you guys, look for people who needed help, answer them and their families. It was crazy. So,
And the most important thing of that, we're gonna do this whole hour on Harvey. The most important thing of that was when someone was rescued, someone needed to check it off a list
yeah,
so that another person and another person and another these rescue teams didn't go out to the same
yeah,
location. So like it was so important to have kind of both of those, on the ground and in the sky working together and just organizing who's already been rescued so that we could rescue someone else. So crazy, but it was so like empowering and I was so impressed with how we all came together and what we're all capable of.
yeah.
So
Actually, we just last comment on that. We changed actually
yeah,
how the Coast Guard does disasters because
amazing.
the citizens, between us, you guys on the ground, everyone, for
Yeah,
10,000 rescues that the Coast Guard
yeah,
could knew about. So they now actually tune into Twitter, and actually they have this tool that came out of it called Crowdsource Rescue that has the maps that check everybody off
amazing.
and stuff. So yeah,
That's
so it
so
really changed everything. Yeah, yeah. So that was pretty
yeah,
cool.
and I love how like technology, filled in the gap there. That's so cool.
Yeah,
And yeah, and it's just cool that sort of like minds end up gravitating toward the same random place, and they were like, "Oh, hey, we're in the same industry." All right, so I've got some questions I wanted to ask you. Sort of the purpose of this podcast is I just like to share, my friends who do things that they love to do. I remember what it was like in like high school and college, and like just figuring out what I want to do with my life. And honestly, like the rate of that people change their careers, it's at any age, but um, you just don't know what's out there, and there's like a perception of maybe what it's like to be in a job or to do a job, and it's just nice to hear like the real world day to day good bad and just kind of educate people, and there's so many different things out there, and I hope that people are able to sort of connect with their passions and find something that they really love to do. So
yeah.
I bring people on this show that love what they do and share about it. Um, so I guess let's start by saying what is your job title and describe what you do for a living.
I am a consultant, SEO consultant. What I do is kind of, I call it concierge SEO. So I don't have a
Mhm.
team of people. I do bring in other experts or other agencies when it's something that I don't do well. I never tell somebody like, oh, I could do that for you and not be able to do it. I'm just going to have someone else come in and it's not right. But
Yeah.
so I kind of partner with them almost like a fractal SEO manager most of the time.
Hmm.
I work with their teams. I start with a site audit to see what they, where they have issues, and then I write
Sure.
up the reports and I work with their teams and their dev teams to find solutions. And then I also give them advice on how to change things or how to implement something so it doesn't hurt their SEO value. SEO used to be, I think, what people thought was just like a tag on. And it's still hard
Yeah.
to fight that feeling. But really, right now, it's like if you're building a house, it's like the regulations the house has to be built to. So a developer
Yeah.
can do something 100 ways, but Google's like, no, we got two. And so I'm there to make
Right.
sure that mistakes aren't made, and I'm there to make sure if mistakes were made, to prioritize how we fix them. So.
Yeah. So I guess let's define SEO sort of in a layman terms. How would you define SEO, search engine optimization?
Years ago, Mac changed it to search experience optimization, and Mac Cuts, and I
Yeah.
think that was probably the best definition. The core principles haven't changed that much. The stuff that they do just has a lot more detail to it. So technical before might have just been checking canonicals, and now it's page speed and load
Yeah.
times. I'm outside of page speed, and then React is a JavaScript. Is a JavaScript rendering that's so Google can
Right.
see it and stuff. So it's like that. It also has a page layout component, content component. Now that we've moved to machine learning and language, that's a different way to
Hmm.
approach content. So the core principle's still there. It's just the way we
Hmm.
do it has gotten more advanced.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, did SEO find you or did you find SEO? Did you go out pursuing it or did you stumble into it?
I totally stumbled into it.
Yeah.
I was a sociology major in college, so I was a barista. That was my first job. Because there are
Nice.
no jobs, and
Yep.
I saw an ad about HTML and web design, and I went into the interview. Very small mom and pop company, and I
Hmm.
said I can do design. You can't teach that, but you could teach me to code. And they're like, "Hey, that's a great idea." So I worked at that company for a year and learned a lot.
Hmm.
It was a hard company to work for, but I also learned a lot, so I'm thankful for that. And then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
moved over to another company in the middle of the countryside of Virginia that was doing like Martha Stewart, and I designed Reba McEntire's website at the time. And
Nice.
yeah, I actually won the
I
contract
grew
for them
up
too.
I grew up listening to Reba.
I
Big
love
time.
Reba. I love
Yeah.
Reba. So that kind of got me started in the website, and then I added accessibility because I worked for a government contractor to those skills. And then I moved to
Hmm.
Vegas, and we were spending 4 million a year on Google clicks. And I had heard about this SEO stuff. It was like
Sure.
2004, and my boss was like, "Well," and I won't say who it is because they still exist, but there
Sure.
was a company that
They're still
had
alive.
it's alive. There was a company that we were paying 20,000 a month to for our SEO,
Hmm.
but they kept telling my boss it was in the sandbox because it hadn't been indexed in 6 months. So she said, if you can figure it out, we'll give it to you. So
Yeah.
I said, well, okay. So now I would know exactly what to look for, but I was new
Sure.
to the SEO stuff. So there was a no
Was it?
index tag on the site
Okay. That's
for
that's a
six
big
months
one.
while we were paying $20,000 a month.
That's a deliberate demand for Google not to index your site.
Exactly.
Very cut,
It's like,
clear and cut.
Google, no, go away. We don't like
Yeah.
you.
What's the
Stay away.
problem? Yep.
So yeah, so she said, that's so basic that
Yeah.
you can't do any worse. And so she let me
It's
start
a big
doing the
one.
SEO. So I cut my teeth on the Las Vegas travel industry. That's how I
Nice.
started. Yeah, and I was still building websites for them and doing the content and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
it was very cool.
Um, I guess what is your biggest client nightmare? Like
Uh,
nightmare client.
Nightmare client, I tend at this point not to work with them. I do
Yeah, me
audits
too.
for I do audits for a reason, and that is one to see
Yeah,
what's on the site, but also to test the client. So if
sure.
the client's really difficult,
Hmm.
and I don't want to deal with that kind of difficulty, I just don't work with them. But nightmare clients are generally ones who have unreasonable expectations, who don't understand how it works, but don't want to be educated on it,
Right,
and have unreasonable expectations for how things should happen. Um, the good clients are the ones that listen to you. So
right.
I always say I've recovered. I do a lot of site recoveries.
Hmm.
I've recovered every site that listened to me. I have not recovered
Amazing.
every
Yeah,
site because some sites don't listen. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
exactly.
you've been doing this longer than I have, but uh, doing it 13 years, you start to really get a sense of the nightmare clients earlier and earlier, and you
Yeah,
start to see those patterns and behaviors.
yeah. It's
But
like that.
you also
Yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll say,
Go
but
ahead.
you have to like put those boundaries down. You have to be assertive and deliberate and not let the money trick you into thinking that it'll be profitable because it won't. I mean, it'll be a time suck and scope creep
Exactly.
and more expensive. So
Yeah, one of my first conferences, I went to the Google dance and I met who's still a friend today. And
yeah,
I said, I can't make any money. I'm working like 60, 70 hours a week. And he's like, and this is not a slam on small businesses, but he said, you're
right.
working for small businesses, aren't you? And I go,
Hmm.
yeah. He goes, well, most small businesses, they pay for it out of their bank account. They write the check. So they don't,
It's
and
more
they don't
fun.
usually understand how it works. Yeah. So he said, so pick the small businesses based on people you feel you can really help and who will really
Right.
listen to you. And as soon as I did that, everything changed. So it's
Oh,
like,
that's
okay,
amazing. That's great advice.
yeah, it was great advice. It was like, he's like, we want to help small businesses. They need our help. And I love helping small businesses. There's a big reward
Hmm.
in helping like a mom and pop because my family had a business.
Sure.
Um, but it has to be someone that's willing to listen to you. So,
Sure. I've
yeah.
experienced that. That is good advice. Um, what are some of the most common SEO issues you come across today when you do an audit?
A lot of technical cruft. So a lot of people, you'll have these debates on Twitter. What's the most important thing? Content, tech, whatever. Technical is always most important, only because if Google can't crawl and index your page and understand it properly to match these search users' intent, what they put in the search box,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter. You could have the best content in the world. You're still going to be like Michael Phelps swimming with 50-pound weights on your back.
Yeah.
You know,
Swing
you,
and a
you
miss.
may be, yeah, you may be amazing, but you're still going to be dragged down by that technical problem. So the first thing I always do is on an audit is give the technical items over because those are also quick wins. So if
Yeah.
like a client recently, they had invalid HTML in the header and that causes Google to stop parsing the page at that
Yeah.
point. And so
That
they had
was that
150.
was someone that yeah. The are you talking about the person that I had you take a
No,
peek
different
at?
one. No,
Okay.
different
Yeah. I was
one.
gonna say
Yeah.
that was the same problem we
Yeah.
had too. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
156 pages were de-indexed
You're
and they
right.
were down 70%, 80% in their traffic and they were getting ready. They were running out of money. So we fixed the HTML issue. 156 pages are immediately re-indexed within two
Man.
weeks. And within a month, they're back up 300% just from that one technical issue. So a lot of times developers think they know SEO, but they don't usually, and that's okay because they have so much to know.
I don't.
But
Yeah.
you need that technical audit, and then you need someone to look at your site structure and your content and your, do you have the right links coming into the site and all those things. But first thing is always technical.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
more traffic you have, the larger the business, the more crucial that is to get checked out.
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, what you're just describing there is like, I mean, they were presumably heading towards business failure. I mean,
They were. They were.
they weren't going to make it. Did
Yeah.
they come to you as like a last resort, kind of like?
I don't know. A friend introduced me to them, but
Okay,
generally,
yeah,
I am the SEO of last resort. Like
yeah.
other SEOs will send an SEO like a project to me. I have one
They're
that's
like, I
been through
tried,
six
fix it,
SEOs.
Kristine.
They are because I specialize in technical because I coded for so
Yeah,
many years. I coded front
yeah.
ends for 14 years. So, and that's not some of the SEO specialties, so they send them to me. But yeah, I am usually the SEO of last resort. I'm like, how long have you had this problem? They're like, 2 years. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Don't even calculate the revenue loss. It's not even,
Exactly.
you don't even want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I always kind of with I'm in pay per click. I always kind of think about the how often things change. There's a constant change in PPC and SEO, but when you do this for so long, there's just like fundamental understandings of how things work and what the motives are of
Hmm.
Google. What they're trying to
Yeah.
do, both the organic and paid side. And so, like, the better you understand that, I feel like no matter what the changes are, there's like an underlying um, sort of if you understand the underlying intent, it's a lot easier to navigate those changes. And so, do you see that the same on the organic side, that a lot of what you learned even 10, 15 years ago kind of still applies today, or is it all completely washed out? and renewed.
No, sometimes I have imposter syndrome because I'm like,
Hmm.
this is the same things we've been doing for 15 years, just a little
Yeah.
different, maybe detail to it or a different
Yeah. Yeah.
approach because Google's changed something or they added something new. But I mean, the spam algorithms have never really changed. You know, if
Right.
someone's like keyword stuffing, they're still going to have a problem with keyword stuffing, and people will keyword stuff alt text a lot of the time. So they won't
Yeah.
do it on the page anymore, but they'll do the alt text and then they wonder why they get hit by an update or something. I'm like, well, you're keyword stuffing. You're just doing it a different way, right? So Google
Right.
didn't used to look at alt text years and years ago, but around 10 years ago they started to add alt text to the thing. So
Right.
there's yeah. So I find I'll hear people doing. I'm like doing all this cutting edge stuff, and I'm like, I get all the results I need by just like here's the things Google wants, and here's
You're
the
like,
best practices, and let's
you
just make
s-
sure you meet those. So
yeah. You
yeah,
still find no indexes on in the sites.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
worst thing now I'm seeing is flat hierarchies. Someone must have wrote a book or something. 'Cause and almost
uh,
every audit now I see every page off the root. Or they may have a category, but none of the pages are in
right.
the category. And so we talked to John Mueller. I love John, but sometimes
Yeah.
the wording, he's like,
John
well,
Mueller's at Google. What's his
I'm sorry,
role?
yes, at Google.
He's like
He's one
a
of the spokespeople for us,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So he'll say like, well, we don't care about the URL structure, but in links we use those to determine topics and topical content. I'm like, well,
Right.
then you do care about the URL structure because the link is the URL structure, right? So I love John,
Yeah.
but sometimes he has to say what he has to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's all
yeah,
approved. So
yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
so that's one of the biggest mistakes I see right now is that Google can't determine your topical relevancy
Hmm.
easily if you don't give it to them. And the more and more machine learning they use, the more specific you have to be. The more you have to like put it on the plate and hand it to them because the machine learning is
Yeah.
specific. So if you have like a site about coffee and you put everything you know about coffee right off the root, Google's like, well, nothing's important. And I don't have any
Right.
topical hubs, so I don't know if you mean how coffee recipes, coffees of the world, how to make coffee. If you put all that in one directory, then Google has no way to really give you
Then
that
where
topical
to put you?
relevance. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so for women thinking of going into SEO, it's a predominantly male industry, as is a lot of tech industries. Are there any like unique benefits or challenges you face as a woman in the industry?
Well, I'm probably going to be the anomaly here.
Okay,
I haven't found a lot of issues. Every industry has
good.
sexism. Every industry has that guy that talks to you like you're two. But
Yeah.
generally speaking, I find, and we just had a conversation on Twitter about this yesterday.
Hmm.
The idea about equality is not like, hey, let's just put women here, right? That doesn't make sense for women either. Because if you work really hard at your job, you don't want some woman that has no experience getting a job over you, right?
Sure.
But it's about opening up the table. It's about saying, inviting people to the seat at the table. And when I started in this industry, it was 95% men. And
Yeah.
I got a lot of invitations to the seat at the table. And I don't even know who usually. I got invited to
Yeah.
write. I got invited to speak. I got invited to conferences that I didn't have to pay for. I was
Great.
included because truthfully, a lot of 95% men. They're kind of like, we'd like to have some girls around, right?
Yeah. Some diversity would
So
be. Yeah. When it's 95, it's,
yeah,
it's a lot of
so,
dudes.
but I just really haven't found a lot of issues with it,
That's good.
and I know a lot of women will say they do, but I find that as long as I know what I'm talking about in this industry and I do a good job and I'm honest and real, that most of the men are very not just like open, but very open to helping me without even telling me they're helping me. Like,
Yeah.
oh, someone will call me like when during the pandemic I had long COVID really really bad, and the PUA assistance went away, and didn't know what I was going to do for work. And one of the guys is like, "Hey, I've got a project for you. Here you go." Like so, that's always how it's worked. I
I,
haven't had so many problems. So
I sense that in my experience as well, I sense that in SEO and PPC and digital marketing, there's definitely this mentor mentee um, culture. I think because nobody went to school for this, I mean, especially
exactly,
back then,
totally,
there was
yeah,
no
yeah. There's
college of
nobody.
SEO in early 2000s or even the 90s. So everyone had to learn from somebody. So the community was so important that
Yeah,
I think when anyone saw a newbie kind of come to the conference, they remembered being that person. So It's definitely, I've experienced that, a very pay it forward, welcoming industry. So
That's a really good
um,
point. And even like something like I don't know if you know about SEO Oktoberfest, but
yeah.
it was a very so I was invited to that in
Hmm.
2013, and that every guy in that group, that conference, because it's a very small invite only conference, had to
Yeah.
approve you to come. Like if one person
Perfect.
said no, you wouldn't have been invited. So I
Yeah.
feel very fortunate that I was invited. But that's the kind of thing I mean. Like the men were kind of like, yeah, we kind of probably need to start because there weren't a lot of women yet, right? There still is
Yeah.
not a lot of us in the industry.
Sure.
We probably should start, looking at some women. And then so they invited me. So like I said, I just haven't had that problem. And
Yeah.
you're so right. We all had to learn from each other. So there was
Hmm.
no way. And it sounds like a funny conversation. It was a funny conversation. There's a guy, Jim Hedger, that is on Webcology, but most people probably don't know.
Hmm.
And we're at this conference in New York. It's my second conference ever. And
Yeah.
I had met his radio partner, Dave Davies, who was actually my business partner for about 9 years.
Hmm.
Later, he was my mentor at first. But everyone at the table was big in SEO. I mean, like
Hmm.
I walked into a bar and someone was paying for all the drinks at the bar. Like I went and get a drink and they're like, it's taken care of by who? Frank Watson. Who's that?
Yeah.
Right. So
I love
everyone at
Frank.
this table is like big names in the industry, right?
Yeah.
PPC, all that's, they're all doing that. They're making millions. And I'm
Yeah.
at the table. And so I'm like, okay. So
Right.
everyone got up for a minute and Jim turned to me. It sounds like a mafia conversation. He's like, Jim's funny. He's like, Kristine, you know why you're here, right? And I go, huh? At this table. People don't usually just hang out with these guys, right? Like,
Hmm.
okay, well, I really appreciate it. And he's like, I said, well, you and Dave. And he goes, no, Dave, have you thanked him? I said, I've thanked him so much. He's like told me to stop. And then
Yeah.
he just like, we want one thing from you. He goes, I was like, what? He goes, you're going to have to do something for us someday. Okay, sounds really mafia, right? And he goes, you have to find good people in the industry that would be good for the industry, and you have to invite them in, and you have to help them
Yeah.
know people. And I was like, that's how I
Who was
started
that
in
that
the
said
industry.
that?
Jim Hedger.
Awesome.
Most people don't
Yeah.
know him because he's in Canada and he doesn't do conferences and
Yeah.
stuff anymore, but he does do webcology. But
That's
yeah, it was really cool. And ever since then, I have done that. Most of the people I don't tell that I'm doing that, but I make
yeah.
sure that they get introduced to everybody,
Yeah.
and that so they have those, that network that was so important in this industry. So
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, it reminds me of like, I forget what the documentary was on Netflix. It's fairly recent where they talk about, I'm going to sound like an idiot because it's not a world I'm familiar with, but they were trying to get a picture, a clear picture of a black hole for the first time. And so they had these satellites all over the world that were orchestrating this picture, and they had to have like clear skies, and it was just this hectic thing to organize all these scientists to take this picture, and then they were going to combine them to try to get a very clear understanding. And it's the same thing to me with the, especially organic algorithms
hmm
on SEO side, is we do well, much better when we all communicate,
yeah, we
because
do. Yeah.
we're seeing it from a very different angle, and it
Oh,
requires all those angles to sort of put together that picture. And so I think that lends itself to that. And so those kind of veteran SEOs, I think, kind of picked up on that. Like, we need good people that are going to share, and people you can trust, because there's also the
yeah.
component of, once you get a clear picture of it, if someone tells Google, picture's gone. Like that cat and mouse game, like they're gonna shut off that opportunity.
I
Um,
remember the days when someone would like write an article about something and that was like everyone had it, Google didn't know.
no.
And you see in the back channels like Facebook and stuff like, what did
Knife
you
stabbing.
do?
Yeah.
They didn't need to know
Yeah, it works
that.
so well. Yeah,
And
yeah.
now it
It's
doesn't anymore. Thanks.
right. Like, by end of day, done.
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, I guess that kind of leads into like, what are some of the soft skills, that are necessary to be successful in SEO, or even broadly just digital marketing service providers?
Well, I think it depends. Like, I mean, if you're agency or consultant, they're very different, like personal skills. But
Hmm.
as far as SEO skills, desire to learn, love to solve puzzles, like to do that deep rabbit hole dive. Because, like, I did a talk on Google's algorithms for language like 2 years ago. I read 80 documents before I even thought I was confident enough to put together a simple presentation.
Yeah.
So you have to really love to learn. I saw somebody tweet once like we should just go 8 to 5 and never have to work over, and I'm like, that's great, but SEO is probably not the career for you. Not because you should have to work so much, but the people who do SEO love learning about it. We love the algorithms. We love to try to figure it out. We love the puzzles. We love how we help our clients once we figure those things,
Yeah.
because Google's a black box. They give us some stuff. And we have the Google documents now, which we didn't have 10 years ago. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just practice, learning, trial, testing, and you have to do a deep dive. Now I don't work 7 days a week. I did that when I first started. I take off Friday afternoon through Sunday morning generally, and I don't even touch a computer. I may do my Facebook or my Twitter, but I mean I don't do email, don't do anything else, because you
Yeah.
have to have that brain break, and then you have to do other things too. But I do think those are some of the most important skills. You just have to really love to learn. You love to logic things out. You like puzzles. You like
Yeah.
solving. And we're social geeks, right? So like
Yeah.
guys who write code, I worked with a lot of them in dev groups, and they're
Yeah.
geeks, and I love geeks. Like, it's not a pejorative anyway. I love them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's the marketing side that's super social, right? We're
Right.
kind of right in the middle,
You're
because
right.
when you go to an SEO conference, like if you go to DEF CON the first time I went, like 15 years ago, they had a
Hmm.
party and everybody was in a corner reading a book or typing on, right? And I was like, oh, this
Telling
is
everyone that they're there. I'm here. I made
no,
it, but not actually there. Yeah.
nobody engaging. Right now it's
Right.
different. Now they
Right.
engage and everything. But
Perfect.
if you go to an SEO conference back then, sure, we did all the talking and the deep dives and all that, and then we go to the Google dance and everyone goes out
Mhm.
and has a great time. So I think that's the best part of it too, is you kind of social
Yeah.
geeks. Like, we all understand that we're all a little bit probably awkward underneath,
Totally.
but at the same
All
time,
of
like,
us.
yeah, yeah, but at the same time, there's so many super smart people too.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's just a nice. I think it's the first place where I found my tribe. Like, devs, I was always not geeky enough, and then
Right.
the other things I was not. I was
PR
too geeky.
people were probably too marketing, and yeah, you're kind of
Yeah,
in the middle there. So
exactly.
tell me about the Google dance. Tell people what the Google dance is.
Oh well, the ones that we used to go to. Now they have
Yeah,
little
yeah,
ones,
yeah.
but yeah, that was so much
The
fun.
original.
This
Yeah.
the sad thing was, I found out after I went the two times that
Hmm.
because my company was spending 4 million a year, I could have
Hmm.
gotten the special VIP experience, which I
Oh,
didn't know. Yeah, but it was so much fun. Like, you go
badass.
to my first conference was at SES. Well, I think I did a small pub con before that, but big conference was
Hmm.
SES San Jose, and they get the buses, and we get on the buses and we go to Googleplex, and
Yeah,
they have karaoke and food and singing and all the Google engineers. We used to be able to hang out with the Google engineers,
it's amazing.
so that was super cool, and it was just amazing. And then the recession hit, and they didn't think it was appropriate to be spending that much money on a party, and I totally get it. I kind of wish they bring it back now, but
And the
um,
purpose of that was for their motives were to, because originally it was very like North Korea, South Korea, kind of between
yeah,
Google and SEOs, and
yeah,
and then Matt Cutts, from my understanding, I wasn't in the industry at the time, but he used like like not a he just used an anonymous username to kind of um, be a part of the industry, and then finally came out as that's him, and then he came to the conferences. It's kind of this slow moving like coming together of the two, and then the Google dance. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was kind of them embracing the SEOs and let's work
yes,
together instead of against each
yeah.
other.
And I
You
think
know,
they realized, truly, Google's product isn't their search result. The product is what sites they pull back, right? So
right?
back in 2004, 2005, Matt Cutts wrote, I believe, if I remember correctly, the algorithm that stopped the porn spam. But right
Yeah,
before that, if you went to Yahoo or anything, you get all sorts of porn spam and
right,
casino
right,
spam
right.
and all that
They were
stuff, right?
winning.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're winning. And I think they figured out that SEOs can tell clients how to do their websites so that it's what they want and what they want to pull back. And if we didn't
right.
exist, because I think there have been times they've tried to want to maybe get rid of us,
Yeah,
more recent past.
take them
But I
out.
think they always boil, because they did a whole developer push. We're going to teach
Yeah,
all the developers SEO. I don't see that anymore, because I think they've realized developers don't have time to learn SEO. They're
it's a lot.
overtasked and under resourced, right? They don't have time for a
Yeah,
whole nother career. So they have to, we're the ones who tell the clients how to do the website so that they pull better websites in their search results.
which benefits Google
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
end user. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't around. I wasn't around yet for all that fun. So what is a typical um, what's a typical week? What's a day in the life of Kristine for being a technical SEO? What does that look like for kids considering maybe doing this as a career, dabbling in it? Like, what does it look like?
Well, and also, so I do all SEO, but I'm focused on technical. for
Right.
other reasons. But um, it depends on the week. That's what I like about it too, right? My brain gets bored easily, so that's
Yeah.
why I like technical because it's always changing. Like the requirements aren't always changing, but the website, how they mess something up, is always it's always different.
Yeah.
So, some developer got really creative and you're like, oh, great. Like I was working for a client and I look at Google Search Console and this report is gone now, unfortunately, but I see 2 billion URLs in the thing where it tells you the URLs it knows about. I'm
Uh
like,
huh.
that does
That's a
say
lot.
2 billion. That says 2 billion, right? And I looked at it again. I counted the zeros. I go, that says 2 billion. Well, what they had was a faceted nav that wasn't locked down, and so they had 2 million products, but every variation of the product, color, size, everything, Google, because it was
Created a
React
new
site,
permutation.
created a new page for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So it knew had 2 billion pages. So anyway, so
It's a lot.
yeah,
With
so
no
for
with no
me,
content. I mean, it's if there's no
no, it
content,
had
it's just like a
it
header.
did.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, it generated content.
Well, it was a faceted nav page, so it did create like a
Okay.
page,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then
Sort of a
and
structured. Yeah.
yeah, and then on that site, it also was able to generate any search term that it thought
Right.
was a
That
search term,
was
and the
searched. Yeah.
URL, the H1, the title, and the description.
Right.
So yeah, so it can vary day to day. The only thing I hate really is writing all the reports because the reports tend to be fairly similar.
Yeah.
But so my days out, it can be learning about something new. I always check Twitter in the morning. I check Barry Schwartz. He's always the one I go to see who's like knows um, what happened this week. And then I do my client work and my emails
Hmm.
and stuff. I tend to often get up at like 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning to do focused work or do it late at night.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
No
because I can't.
emails, no calls.
Exactly. So I have a
So
weird
important.
day. Like I'll do like shifts. So a
Yeah.
regular, but I don't have kids or something around. If you had kids, or you can do that. But I can get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning, work till like 7 or 8, answer all the emails,
Yeah.
and take a break, take a nap, get up, and then work again. And then I'll take an afternoon break, and then I'll come back at night. And from Monday to Thursday or Sunday night to Thursday night, it's SEO. It's
And
primary all
and
work.
if you wanted to go to Hawaii for 3 months, you could, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So for
Yeah.
anyone looking at it, the
It's
great thing is
amazing.
the portability. You can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
It's always changing. So if you're the type like me who gets bored, it's really hard to get bored in SEO. There's always
It's
something else you could learn, and and the
if it gets
community.
boring, just wait. Just wait a second. It'll change.
And the community. I mean, we've had some problems lately of people trying to be SEO famous, and that's kind of led to a lot of dragging online, which is not good. But if you look at the core people in the community, the people that have been around for a while, they don't participate in any of that. And so you
Yeah.
have like this family, like we're not just like coworkers, like you might be at a job and like, oh, hey, did you have a good
No.
weekend? We know each
No.
other's lives and their troubles and everything that they've dealt with. And, we're like a
Yeah.
family. Sometimes we fall out, but we always come back together. So
Yeah.
there's that element to it too, which is just really nice because
I love that.
I don't think outside of policing and firework and teachers and nursing, like I don't think that there are many industries outside that have that sense of
Closeness, like
yeah,
relationship. Yeah, I
yeah,
sense that too. Yeah, there's
yeah,
some people
exactly.
that like, I mean, I've known now for like, you know, 12, 13 years
Yeah,
and
me too.
seen them through all their jobs, business going well, business going bad, the comeback, I mean, everything. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's pretty remarkable. Um, so in SEO, one of the things, and I think this is kind of one of the reasons I had to pick, we started with SEO and PPC and then we had to pick one because I just couldn't do both. There was
Oh, it's too much. Yeah,
yeah, you had to specialize.
too much. You have to specialize.
And I noticed that, with SEO, one of the things that was difficult was you had to develop trust and with a client, and you had to have patience. They had to have patience because technical can sometimes boom, you just unlock what's holding them back, and then boom, they pop. But when it comes to like link building and on-site and different things, it can take time. I mean, it could take 9 months, it could take a year. So how do you manage those expectations with a client and build that trust?
Well, one, I always I answer emails like instantly for the most part, within a
Hmm.
couple hours. Always make sure that they know you're there because a lot of times what happens in the tech world is people just disappear, for weeks at a time and they
Sure.
don't say anything. So always communicating with your client. I never use
Sure.
definites. I say, this is what I know about the algorithms. This is what I know about how Google works. I can't assure you that it will, around this time, be better, but I do know we fixed all these things, and when that update rolls out again, we should see a increase. Because
Yeah.
if I was giving them definites and it didn't happen, then they would be,
Sure.
disappointed. Always under promise and over deliver. Like I
Yep.
know from like in my gut, like we're gonna get probably like a 50% increase, right? But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
never say that. Like
Right. 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 Right.
like well, I'm like maybe 10%. I'm really hoping for
Yeah.
10%.
Yeah. And then they're like, "Oh
Um,
my gosh, it's 40 or whatever." Yeah.
exactly. And then I offer them assistance in anything that they need. I'm not hardcore on my I'm how do I say this? Some people are very like, I charge by the hour and I only do this, and that's fine. And agencies have to
Yeah.
do a lot of that, but I don't have to do that because I'm just me. So here's my project
Yeah.
retainer rate, and they'll reach out, and that's not something completely in scope. Now, if it's way out of scope, that's different. But I'm
Sure.
just like, hey, I'll throw an hour at you, and it's that builds the trust too. I won't do,
Yeah.
I won't throw 10, I won't throw, but I'll throw a little extra. Um,
I'm the
and
same
then
way.
yeah,
I'm the same way with that. It's like I'm there's there's the money I can make for my blended rate, but there's the lifetime value of the customer
right,
when you just kick ass for them.
yeah,
So,
exactly,
you know what I mean? So it's like if you find a month where there's like twice as much work, but it's this major thing that if we can just get on over the hump and figure it out, like for me, it's been PMAX, it's taken way more time to dig in and figure out and navigate this new push from Google, forced push. Um, but yeah, no, I feel the same way. It's ultimately getting those wins for the client, even if you're kind of overworking every once in a while. In the end, it's going to come back to you.
exactly. And the times I overwork, then there's times I don't need to work as hard for that client
Yeah,
either because we did accomplish what they needed,
yeah.
and now
You
there's
can
like a
relax
chill
for a
period.
second and benefit from
Exactly.
the windfall. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I would say the other thing is writing and speaking. Like some people down
yeah.
speaking, like you're trying to be, it's about your ego or something. It's not one I like to share with the community what I know,
Love it.
to help like make sure the narratives are good on what I know, and then I love going to someone else's talk when they know something I don't.
Yeah,
But also writing and speaking means that when they Google you, that they have a trust factor because
for sure.
you're speaking and you're writing for people. So when you tell them something, it's much more impactful than my resume says X, Y, Z, right?
Of
Now, there's
course.
some people not comfortable with that. So you can just write on your own blog or something to share it with the community. You don't have to write for, SE Journal or something, but
Yeah,
it just really helps. And you can even do talks just in your community. You can go ask the college or the
definitely.
school, like, can I go down there and do a class? And you can put that on your
Immediate
resume.
authority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it really helps. I rarely ever get asked for a resume. I think it's been at least 5 years, and
Yeah.
that's, yeah, like it's
And I
very
imagine
rare.
so much of yours is they find you through a lot of that. They find you through the industry or a
Yeah,
referral, or they read something you said or posted.
yeah, because I
Um,
have no website.
okay, yeah. That's literally the cobbler's kids have no shoes. Just like I'm not even.
Exactly.
I don't have to update the plugins every 2 weeks. We're done. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's
that's
funny.
awesome.
Also, I do usability and I do accessibility and I do all these other things. So I have this fear if I have a website that someone's going to
It'll
come along and
represent you. Yeah.
yeah, and they're like, oh, this
Yeah,
isn't
I
accessible.
with our website, it's the same thing. I'm always like, it hasn't been updated in like 7 years, but it's like I got to do the math on the incremental value of me making it flashier. And at the end of the day, it's like
Exactly.
my testimonials are going to tell them what they need to know. So I
Exactly.
feel the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah.
I feel you. I
Yeah.
was in your presentation. It was amazing.
Oh,
I
thank
brought,
you.
yeah, I brought a gentleman with me from a potential client who I got a ticket for the conference. And he just like he was just mind blown, I mean, because I'd asked him going into it, like, "Are you guys doing SEO?" And he was like, "I mean, not really." And it just sounded like walking into yours is like he's about to, like a lot of people don't even understand how much they're missing out on. They don't
Yeah.
they don't know what they don't know. And anyway, could you kind of what was the topic that you gave, and could you do a quick little summary of what you spoke about?
Sure. Google started adding machine learning in a lot of places. So first it was language, and then there's these things called neural matching and rank baiting that are added after your page is scored, not your site. Your page is scored and
Mhm.
ranked, and then they re-rank it. And people don't realize a lot of the time that you have no impact on that re-ranking except for user intent. Everything else has already been scored, and this is a post machine learning
Right.
match, right? So because machine learning really changes how Google interprets things, I hadn't seen a lot of people do talks on the machine learning aspects of Google and the helpful content update, which ran in September, I think. There's so many. I think it was of September, maybe August. August.
All right.
It's been like one after the other for like the
Yeah,
last
yeah,
3 months.
yeah.
So, but it's a machine learning ranking signal, and they've never used a machine learning ranking signal. And years ago, Matt Cutts said, if we use AI or it's machine learning, we use machine learning in the ranking signals, it breaks. We don't know how to fix it. And he's right. You don't know how to
Mm,
fix it because it made decisions
yeah.
um, from what it knows to make changes. So you may not know why the results are so bad, and Google would have to then try to reverse engineer something that has no information on how it was created.
You
So
gave an example. Sorry, you gave an example about a search you searched, and it gave some really strange results that didn't make any sense with your experience as an SEO.
was that the sweets one and the dog?
Like it was like a water filtration, or like was
Oh
there
yeah.
a
So
city something?
I found RankBrain before Google announced it.
Yeah,
I didn't know what it was, but
yeah,
about 9 months earlier, I think it was about that long.
yeah.
I was just looking at water rights in
Right.
Nevada because California was having a real drought. I was just
Hmm.
curious what they were because we have all these treaties here. And
Hmm.
I was like, Las Vegas water rights. Okay, something came up, and then I did Mesquite, which is where like a lot of the wrangling is, and it
Hmm.
came up like mesquite barbecue and mesquite trees and mesquite. I was like,
Like,
what? Mesquite,
these are
Nevada is like
very
a
different
town, right?
options.
Yeah. I'm like, this has nothing to do with water rights. And then I started, so my puzzle brain went, oh, so let me try some other big cities, California, Nevada. We only have two
Hmm.
big cities here, but our
Right.
two. And I got decent results on water rights. And then I did our smaller mid cities, and then I did small cities. And the smaller it got, the more I got
A
those whatever they
broadening
were.
of results.
Right. And so I'd written an article about it for Search Engine Journal. It was ready to publish that day, and Google announced it.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling they got a tip that I had written an article about this
Or like
algorithm they hadn't announced.
an embargo, not like they probably got tipped off with an embargo not to mention it, and they're sitting on your article that talks about it. Like, I mean, I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Well, yeah, either way, yeah, it was just funny
Yeah.
because I turned it in like 2 days earlier, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden
Yeah.
I it's supposed to be published that day, and I see Google announces Rank Brain, and I'm like,
You're like,
that's what I've been looking at for the, and I
right.
didn't describe
Right.
it, of course, in their terms, but it was a kitchen sink result that
Yeah.
Google was doing when it was confused on what it was looking at in the search intent. So
Hmm.
yeah, so that's how I found it. So
Did you
the mach-
feel? Did was that like a feeling of like you've like reached some level of like deep understanding that you're sort of like, I don't know, you're catching things before they're public. That's got to be a cool feeling as an SEO, when we're always sort of on the other side, like picking up the pieces. I don't know, that's got to be a cool feeling.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't really have any ego about it. It was just more like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
cool. I really found something. Like, I didn't just think there was
yeah.
something. I found
No,
something.
but you earned it. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
you get a sixth sense, and you kind of stumble on things, and like anyone else would have seen that and just been like, "Oh, that's dumb," that doesn't make any sense. But you were like, what's going on here?" And you kind of dig in and explore. That
Yeah.
that's
That's my
great.
geek brain. That helps me with clients.
Totally.
It's like a client, not I won't get into the whole story, but I was there for the first week and they had
Hmm.
4 letters in their number fourth term in GSC, that people search for.
Yeah.
And I go, what are the 4 letters? And I look on the site. It's not there. It doesn't exist on the site. So I do, site name with the 4 letters, check the site and
Yeah.
nothing. So I just do it by itself in quotes and up comes porn. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh. So
That's off.
yeah. So they had a man in the middle attack, which just means there's a vulnerability on the website where the hackers are using your page rank, using your
Yeah.
visibility in search,
Flowing it to
and then
them.
re-ranking to the porn site.
Right.
So they had that vulnerability for
Which is hurts their business on so many levels.
oh so many levels because
Yeah.
they also had React pages. So if you put something in the search box, it created a page,
Yep. Yep.
and they put it in the title, description, URL,
Oh,
and the H1s. So that was search box was like that for 20 years. So I uncovered like they were selling everything from like down, ringtones because they had been around for a while,
whatever.
to a
Yeah.
lot of adult toys. To
Yep.
there were some very nasty things said about a certain prophet that if someone found
Mm.
it could cause them a lot of problems.
Oh, just a branding
So
nightmare.
yeah, and so, but I only found it because my brain goes, that's weird.
Yep.
So, and then I go, why is it weird? I need to find out why
Yeah.
this is weird. Same thing when I found rank brain. I'm like, that's weird. That's not how it's supposed to
Yeah.
react, right? So that's how my brain works.
I've heard SEOs described as bloodhounds. Like you just kind of like smell something,
That's a
and then
good one.
you
Yeah.
find the
Like,
source of it. Yeah, like way in the woods
yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. You kind of answered this question, but do you want to touch on where you go to stay current in SEO? Like where are your sources? You mentioned a couple.
Well, I do Barry Shorts predominantly. I do check John. I mean, I know how to listen to Google, what Google says.
Yeah,
Um, I
and
check with
interpret it.
things. Yeah, there's good to be a Google interpreter. I check things
Yeah,
with John and Martin when I'm not sure, especially for clients. I try not to tell clients something I'm not 100% positive about. And then other SEOs, I'm in a bunch of groups and I've been around long enough that if I have a question, I can just go on Messenger and say, hey, what's the
nice.
deal? Yeah, I don't. The interesting thing is when I do research for articles, it's not the rock stars that I find are as informative as like some random agency that wrote a guide to like
Hmm.
whatever it is and they did
That
the real
really specific.
research. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they weren't
And they
trying to
like
be famous.
they did all the work. They did all the
Yeah,
work to bring it. Yeah.
exactly. And I'll be like,
Yeah.
I've never heard of this person or this site, but I'll put them in my articles, because
Yeah.
it's really good info. So,
I imagine there's like uh, when you're maybe I don't know if they're I'm assuming this, but sometimes when you're new to the industry and you're hungrier, you're willing to do a lot of extra legwork
it's probably
to get
true.
some
Yeah.
attention. So maybe
Yeah.
that's a part of that. So okay, so let's kind of zoom out from work and talk about like what are some of the just kind of the hobbies and things that you do outside of work to kind of give yourself a work life balance. I know that you have a degree in sociology in the arts. Is that correct?
I do. I almost got my PhD in sociology, but I
Oh,
got to the
amazing!
dissertation
That's
stage,
a
and
big
I
one.
was I was sick, and they had
Yeah.
cut our budgets here, and they had to graduate people more quickly. So they said work full time or do school full time. I said, well, no one else pays my bills, so I guess I'm out.
Right.
So,
Yeah. We're gonna do
but
this.
I did do
Yeah.
7 years of education in it. So, I do. One, I just love to go hang out with friends, my good friends, and just have
Yeah.
talks because I'm by myself all week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if I'm doing this, like talking to you or talking to someone on the computer, it's not the same as being in person.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So like tonight, I went to a big Halloween party last night, but tonight I'm just going to a friend's backyard and we're going to hang out and have dip. It's dip
Amazing.
night. But I also
Nice.
do photography. It's one of my loves. Photography, I love to do. I love to dance. I couldn't dance during the pandemic. Now I don't dance professionally anymore, but I took it for many, many years. So I love to just. I'll go to the
Yeah.
Irish pub and fake Irish dance, but it's like my thing. Like people play video games to get their energy out, or they play sports.
Totally.
For me, it's going dancing.
That's
Um,
awesome. And we talked about
yeah,
this over breakfast, but you danced growing up too, right? That was something that
yeah.
was
Since I was 3, my feet were turned in
yeah.
like this. So my mom
Uh
wanted to
huh.
turn them out, and my mom was a dancer at the Copacabana with the Rat, like Jimmy Durante and the Rat Pack would come there
Amazing.
in those days.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I do that, and uh, yeah, I'm just kind of I like to do a lot of things. I go to see the musical theater at the Smith Center
Hmm.
here. I got season tickets this year, so I meet friends to do that.
Yeah.
I love to go outdoors. I had some health issues recently, so I haven't done as hiking as much as I used to, but I still like to
Hmm.
go. We go walking like once a week in a really nice, like, park or something. So things like that. I just like to get outdoors. I need creative things. I have kind of a brain that works very logically and very creatively, so kind of need
Sure.
both. But photography really is my first love. And I also sing.
Yeah.
So I used to do
Nice.
musical theater. Yeah.
Amazing.
So
So
yeah.
fun.
So
So
yeah.
fun. And then I guess just to wrap things up, um, it was it was such a pleasure spending time with you at the conference. Um, I can't thank you enough for coming. You came you came to two of my open mics. They put me up a little bit early. You missed the first one, but
Yeah, it was
you came
awesome.
to the
By the way,
second
you're
one.
really good. By the way,
Thanks.
Sean's not going to tell you, and I'm not saying this just because I know Sean. Seriously, if you get a chance to see his stand up, you have to see his stand up. He's really, really good. He's funny,
Thanks.
very funny.
It's so silly and fun. I love it. And I love the mix. I love the mix of like it was just so funny bringing my digital marketing friends to an open mic where
Yeah,
they're kind of my comedian friends. I've never met these people, but like I'm now following most of the people in that room now. You know what I mean? Like we always find each other, and it's just a certain
Yeah.
type of person. So it was so funny to me, like doing an open mic in front of like my people and my people that were just very different people.
I
You know,
get that. I
except
get
for
that.
David. David is now part of both groups. He went up and did his
He is.
first 5-minute set. So. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to speak at more conferences. Have you been speaking, or was State of Search kind of your first coming back speaking? Or
I did a lot of virtual speaking, which I
okay,
don't like. I did do
not the
affiliate
same.
summit twice during the pandemic,
Yeah,
here in Vegas. But generally speaking, no, I just did virtual. But virtual, I like the energy from people. I like to see their faces. I like to see if they're getting it or not getting it. Like, am I saying it in a way they understand? And in virtual is
totally.
like, here's a screen. Now just talk, and we don't know who's there. We can't see anything, you know. So
It's hard to
I
read the crowd. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know
Comedians
anybody
did
that
that
likes it.
too. Comedians did
Oh, that's so
web
hard.
comedy. Can you even
Oh,
imagine?
no. No, because I did theater for a number of years. So, you're on the stage and you
Yeah.
notice that people are getting, like, they're into it or
You
not.
can
Like,
sense
oh,
the
that'd be
energy.
horrible. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be
Yeah, but
horrible.
I mean, I probably made them better comedians that they were able to push
Sure.
through.
Yeah. Yeah.
But awesome. Well, I'm so happy you did this. You're my first interview for my new podcast that I've been telling myself I'd start for a decade. Finally here, finally happened. I can't wait to see you at the next conference. I'd love to get with you and just see which ones you're going to be speaking at, and
Yeah.
even if I
Same
don't
here.
get in, I'll definitely go hang out. I'm looking to get out and travel and speak and tell jokes and do all those things. So hopefully people got some value. There was so much here. And thank you so much. I'm gonna hit the music. You ready? Here we
Thank you for
go.
having me. That's great.
Do you hear it? You do hear it. Okay. Once again, Kristine Schachinger. Nailed it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Did I get it?
Yeah. You got it.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you, Kristine. I hope you have an amazing evening. Have fun with your friends, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. All right.